welcome to For the Love of Nature, a podcast where we tell you everything you need to know about nature and probably more than you wanted to know. I'm Laura Fawks Lapole.
And I'm Katie Holloway, and today we're talking about species around the world that are vanishing and dying at an alarming rate.
Not yay!
Yeah. It's not going to be as depressing as it sounds. Well, I say that, but it's pretty depressing. But we're going to be talking specifically about the species that are in North America, because I feel like all too often people, when we talk about, animals that are dying and going extinct, everybody just mentally assumes it's ones that are far away, and there are some species
like
here in North America.
Stuff.
Yeah, tigers. Yeah, and everybody just assumes it's someplace far away. Nope. We have animals that are dying due to our own stupidity right here in our backyards.
And unfortunately, a lot of them we had to choose from.
Yeah, right. Yeah, there were a lot more to choose from than I was hoping.
Oh, yeah, because, normal, and also I think most people are normally thinking of mammals, but,
yeah,
dude,
true.
The amount of, endangered freshwater mussels, which we should care about.
That was not one of the ones I was expecting you to say, but I'm glad you did, because, yeah, that is a big deal.
There are a lot of them.
No, there are. There definitely are. There definitely are. All right, do we want to jump into nature news then?
Do it.
Okay, all right, so I have one here. It's from sciencenews.org. Yep, I always want to say .com, but no, it's .org. So it's titled, Assassin Bugs Tap Spiders to Distract Them Before a Lethal Strike.
That's so rude. Hello, good sir. Can I interest you in some... And then bam.
Can I talk to you about your car's extended gram?
Yeah.
Just shiv you. So... assassin bugs, it goes on to say that they live up to their name. They expertly stalk, which is what they're known for, is stalking. And
Expert stalking.
Expert stalking, not just stalking. And feeding upon other small vertebrates, jabbing them with a venomous proboscis. But they are saying in this one... Let's see here. The thread-legged bugs, which is a subfamily of a particularly gangly assassin bug, which is an awesome description.
Definitely.
Gangly assassin bug.
Gangly.
Because I'm sorry, but assassin bug, that sounds threatening. A gangly assassin bug, not so much.
Never mind. Yeah. Unless
So
it's like Slender Man, I guess, or something.
True. Let's see here. The bugs, these assassin bugs, silently creep along the spider's silk, taking care to make their vibrations seem benign before violently dispatching the web's architect, seizing the spiders with their front legs and injecting them with venom.
Dang.
So they looked at two species of these assassin bugs. And let's see here. It says... watching the bugs spend so much time on effort and stealth, which they do, only to essentially tap the spiders on the shoulder, was just fascinating, what they say. So, sneak up, shoulder tap, boom, die.
Boom.
So they tried to replicate this, which just was really interesting. They tried to replicate the bug's antennae, because that's what they're tapping. The assassin bugs are tapping them on the shoulder with the antennae. But let's see here. The researchers replicated the bug's antennae tapping by gently brushing the spider's leg with a dog hair. And after the tapping, the team measured the spider's responses to a vibrating tuning fork placed on the web, mimicking a struggling insect. Tapped spiders were far less aggressive than those that weren't tapped, fully ignoring the tuning fork 4 times as often.
That's crazy. They're so mellowed after getting a leg massage that they're just like, never mind.
Ah, that's nice. They don't see the death that's coming around the corner.
Can you imagine if, your masseuse all of a sudden whipped out a freaking knife?
Shiv. Work out that muscle right there. Just shanks you. Oh, goodness. Anyway, yeah, so that was... that's interesting to me. And that's a new story. That was a few days ago that they published this work. So that's my nature news.
I'm going to have to tell my entomologist friend. I'll see if he heard about it.
Soothing leg assassin bug.
Yeah. Well, mine is also crazy and very apt for today. And it's from BBC News, and it's California condors are having virgin births.
What?
Yeah. Virgin birth, not a scientific term. Instead, we were going to be using the term
I wish it was. I really wish it was.
parthenogenesis, or asexual reproduction.
I mean, okay, hold on, pause. We gotta go back to this Jesus thing. I mean, they call them the Jesus Christ lizards, basilisk lizards.
Yeah.
Like, why can't it be...
Virgin births?
Virgin births.
And yeah, it's not even inherently Christian. A virgin's just a virgin.
Yeah.
Yeah, so California condors, which are a critically endangered species from North America, there's only 500 left. Thankfully, they have figured out that they don't need no man to have babies.
Let's just, all the women birds just got together and they're like, you know what? It's not working having the men around. Let's just figure this shit out on our own.
Yeah.
And just start repopulating ourselves.
Changing your genes. So yeah, this isn't super weird for lots of other species, fish,
but
lizards.
Birds. Yeah, but birds.
I guess there's the occasional bird, but not ever in condors. And
which
so
is crazy.
they discovered this when they did a genetic testing of a couple of captive birds, and they found that 2 male chicks had their mom's DNA and no father DNA. So
which is crazy.
Had to have been a virgin birth.
Okay, what other birds though?
I don't know.
Wait a second here. Few notable exceptions in turkeys and chickens.
Turkeys and chickens. I feel like that's got to be domestic messing with, though, right? Like,
yeah,
don't you think that might not be a wild thing? I'd be very curious, because we have messed up some serious genes with them, I'm sure.
Let's see here. Chinese painted quail.
Okay.
Which I feel like, but a lot of people domesticate quail. Yeah. Yeah, so this one's just talking about quail, turkeys, and chickens. So yeah, I feel like domestication has to do something with it. But we'll have to look at more.
Although these are captive birds too, so is it just an environmental thing? Who knows?
Yeah, they've just figured out. Not only do I not need no man, I'm going to make the best of my situation. And
Yeah. Well, and probably some siblings. I mean...
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know. We'll see. Well, yeah, so parthenogenesis, thankfully, they are going to attempt to save their own species by just having babies without men. So yeah, with that, I guess let's go into what is a critically endangered animal and all of that awful stuff.
Yeah. We're going to try to make this as lighthearted and as interesting as possible
Don't worry,
today.
we'll be laughing.
Yeah. All right, so today we're going to talk about species that are vanishing across North America, like I said earlier. Oftentimes when we think of animals that are going extinct or need human conservation intervention, we think of them as being miles away in some jungle, which is absolutely not the case at all. It's some of the most charismatic animals that often gain the most attention and finances, and they're the ones that end up being in the news, on social media platforms, the one you see all the time. And often these animals suck time, money, and resources away from conservation efforts as a whole. Pandas.
Panda.
Not to name any names, the panda. Which I know we've aired our grievances with panda conservation before. It's great. Animals need to be saved. However, pandas, aren't helping themselves. California condors, or at least, they figured out a way to make themselves. Pandas are just dumb.
Yeah, check out
general.
our How Are You Still Alive episode.
Yeah, it's just stupid animal, but also so much money. All over the world is sunk into pandas, and disproportionately put into panda conservation. Anyway, so to give some perspective on North America, though, there are currently 1,300 species which are classified on the IUCN's Red List. So what? Yeah, that's a lot. 1,300 here in North America. So what's the IUCN Red List, you ask? I know we've mentioned it several times, but I'm not sure if we've actually gone into it.
I just feel like I should have been like, what's the IUCN Red List, Katie?
Yeah, all right. Well, let me tell you, Laura. It's the International Union for Conservation of Nature, IUCN. And the Red List is it's a list of threatened species. Founded in 1964, it's the world's most comprehensive inventory of global conservation status of biological species.
Yeah, so if you want to know something about an endangered species, you go there. They've got, population trends, ecology information, all of it.
Yeah, natural history facts. It's an easy one-stop shop.
Yes.
And then it divides it up into which of the 7 categories these different animals fall into. So the 7 are extinct, which is beyond reasonable doubt that the species no longer is existing. Extinct in the wild, which is survives only in captivity. Critically endangered, in a particularly and extremely critical state. Endangered, which is very high risk of extinction in the wild. And then there's some other things that it has to meet. Vulnerable meets one of the 5 red list criteria, and this is considered to be at high risk. Near threatened, close to being at high risk for extinction or near in the future, or least concern, which is unlikely to become extinct in the future.
That's where we want everything to be.
We want everybody to be in the least concerned. Alrighty. So, let me see here. Animals obviously become threatened for many different reasons, and we'll talk about, the individual animals that we have, but there seems to be a common trend of humans. So, just making a general observation here from my own scientific research that humans suck when it comes to not only managing our resources effectively, but also understanding how oftentimes if you just pluck out one species from an ecosystem, the insane ripple effect that it has.
Oh, yeah. Are you bringing up the phrase, the 6 mass extinction?
I wasn't going to, no.
Okay.
Did you want to talk about it briefly?
No, I just wanted to, you were just saying that...
Well, now people are going to wonder.
Humans are a factor, and FYI, we are going through the 6 mass extinction. So there's been other huge events throughout time where lots of species have gone extinct, think like dinosaur asteroid, and then we're in the 6th one now, and it's human-induced.
Human caused, yeah. And it is at an alarming rate. I mean, this is one that you... Again, it's almost like climate change. Like, it's something that you really can't argue anymore. Like, again, we talked about this. We got on a soapbox in another episode about this, that I think the biggest mistake that scientists made with climate change was calling it global warming at first. Because everybody was like, it's not warming, it's not us causing it. And that made it too political, too polarizing. But it is, humans, we do have a detrimental effect. Coming from somebody with a freaking master's degree in resource management. So I'm telling you, we suck at managing our resources because people just don't think of it in the way that we should be thinking about it. It's a resource for later on, and we need to hold on to that. Anyway, I digress. So, out of the 1,300 species that are vanishing here in North America, Laura, what did you want to talk about first?
Oh, man, that came up fast.
Well, I just wanted to do a brief intro.
No, it's fine. I wasn't ready.
You were in the zone, bopping a Laura.
I'm going to start with the species with more, the less critically endangered. It's a species I had literally never even heard of before, and I was so excited to learn about it.
Oh, fun!
It's called the pygmy raccoon. There's a thing called a pygmy raccoon.
Pygmy raccoon? Okay.
Yeah, it's literally just a tiny raccoon.
Huh.
It's so cute. Raccoons are already cute. Yeah, me neither. So, let me tell you a little bit about it.
Oh my gosh, they're so tiny.
Yeah, so individuals left. Bad news is there's only 192 pygmy raccoons on this planet.
Oh no. Save the pygmy raccoons, guys.
Yeah, that no one knows exists. So they look just like a northern raccoon, which is what we have here in most of the United States. Mostly gray with a black mask that's adorable, black ringed tails. Their tails are a little more golden color. They have pointy noses, overall adorableness. And these are just the mini versions. And by mini, we mean that they weigh 45% less and are 18% smaller than those on the mainland. So they're about 8 pounds, 39 inches. So like a little cat raccoon. Scientists think that they're probably smaller than those on the mainland because there are less resources where they live, which is only on Cozumel Island off the Yucatan Peninsula of Mexico. So
we gotta make a huge campaign to save the pygmy raccoons.
Yeah, and I mean, totally
it's up to us,
sense.
Laura. You and me. It's up to us.
I believe it because I bet nobody else besides the occasional pygmy raccoon scientist. Very niche. So. Not surprising at all that they're critically endangered because they live on an island. And unfortunately, island biogeography, as we mentioned in our last episode with lemurs on Madagascar, is bad news. It's bad news to live on an island because there's nowhere else for you to go. So they live in the forest, but unfortunately, only the forests on the coastline, instead of like the dense forest where nobody lives, that's in the middle of the island, they're like, no thank you. They're pretty social.
They're raccoons that like a view. I mean,
little trash pandas.
Yeah.
They're nocturnal like all raccoons. Solitary, although they do sometimes form family groups. Okay, so what I really like about pygmy raccoons is that they're omnivores. And that's normal for all raccoons.
Yeah, I was like, wait a minute.
Because they have hashtag island life, they have a diet that's 50% crab.
That's awesome.
Yeah, these little guys are just feasting on crabs on beaches.
Okay. I also, that's a great image because I picture, because you know how like raccoons, they do have very, dexterous hands. And so I picture them out there just cracking crabs, you know? Like,
no, it's a super cute picture. They've got sunglasses on a beach towel.
Just cracking crabs.
in their little Mexican island.
Yeah.
So they also eat other things, fruit, insects, crayfish, other invertebrates, and their diet changes a lot with the seasons and storms because they live on an island.
Makes
so
sense, yeah.
They're pretty dependent on that. They are a term that maybe you've never heard of before, that's polygynandrous, which means that both males and females have multiple partners. So all pygmy raccoons are players.
Yeah, it just doesn't matter.
And they usually all gather in one spot when females are in heat. So, pygmy raccoon orgies on the beach. Good picture. Eating crabs. And
sounds like a great time.
Yeah. That's probably a lot of people's great time on vacation in Mexico. And unlike other raccoons, they do not hibernate since they live on an island. So no need to do that.
Well, and it's warm too.
Right. So the that's a little bit of the natural history of the pygmy raccoon. Why are they in such trouble? Well, like I said, they live on an island. But specifically, you know, all of these critically endangered species are in trouble for lots of different reasons. It's usually not just one single thing.
Yeah, it's normally a factor of things.
Right. And I'm not going to focus on a gazillion different ones because we'd be here all day and it'd be really depressing. So I'm just going to real quick mention 3. Habitat loss, of course. So the island has been developed quite a bit since 2005, which I was surprised it wasn't before then.
Yeah.
So in 2005, started getting really developed, and of what is left, roads fragment the populations and result in a lot of fatalities, which is how most of the raccoons on the island have died since 2001.
Sounds about right.
Cars. Yeah. Introduced carnivores are another huge problem for island species because they weren't there before. So we have introduced boa constrictors and feral dogs to the island. Both of which are killing pygmy raccoons. And they also introduce pathogens and parasites as well. Because as I mentioned in a previous episode, raccoons can get things from both dogs and cats. And if they were never exposed to it before, they can bring stuff from the mainland when they come.
Gosh, yeah.
And then, of course, they have to deal with hurricanes, which is not something that we can prevent. But is a very real problem for these poor little raccoons.
These pygmy raccoons just trying to be out and about enjoying their crabs and orgies and just get blown away by a hurricane.
Every once in a while, yeah, a hurricane blows through. So, what's being done? Because that's the hopeful stuff. So, this is a North American species, but it is not a United States species. Thankfully, they do have legal protection in Mexico. There is an island-wide ecological ordinance system, which is basically a system that is trying to reduce human conflict with them, determine a pattern of land occupation, and maximize stakeholder interest in the pygmy raccoon and the ecology and the island fauna in general.
Yeah, it's also an interesting point to mention too. I think Kim wrote this in the notes on mine, but in states and countries, like the IUCN is the general for the entire world, the status of the entire world. But within states or within individual countries, the status of endangered whatever can vary.
Yes, right, because something in Maryland might be endangered that's not endangered in Texas.
Yep.
So thankfully they're trying to establish protected areas. They're doing invasive alien animal control, which is mostly right now with urban dogs and cats, but really they said, they really need to do stuff about the boa constrictors and a couple other things. And they're working on a captive breeding program. And of course, they're focusing on environmental education and species studies. So they're, it hasn't been going on for very long, but they're trying. And there were never many pygmy raccoons to begin with, let's be real.
Yeah, it's an island. Yeah.
And really, that's what it is that makes them critically endangered, is because there were never many to begin with, and so any problems is going to result in some serious losses.
Gosh.
So hopefully what Mexico is trying to do is going to succeed and the pygmy raccoon will stick around.
Long live the pygmy raccoon. We really need to get on this about spreading awareness for the pygmy raccoon.
Because adorable. I already love raccoons, but a mini raccoon, even better.
It might just be the pictures, but it looks like they're a lot healthier and a lot leaner of a life than a regular raccoon.
Well, right.
Like our regular raccoon.
Eating crab all day is probably pretty good for you.
Yeah, so just typical trash panda.
Garbage. Yeah.
Legit garbage. Alrighty. So, I decided... You were done with yours, right?
Oh, yeah.
I figured. Yeah. Okay. Tiny trash pandas. Alright, moving on then. I decided to focus both of my animals on Texas species since Texas is now my home. Although Texas is home to 32 of the 47 total species of bats here in the U.S., many of which are threatened, I decided not to cover bats, regardless of how much I like them. I know that's shocking to everybody.
Well, right. Are there any critically endangered?
I don't know if there are any critically. I would assume.
Well,
it's a bat. I'm going to assume though that there are. It's a bat.
Yeah.
I just decided not to focus on bats since I always choose bats.
Always choose bats.
Always choose bats. All right. So my first is one often no one knows about or realizes even lives in Texas. I'm also shocked that Laura did not pick this animal, but it's the ocelot.
I knew as soon as you said it. Okay. Cool.
All right, so now before people go crazy, yes, the IUCN Red List lists the ocelots of least concerned. But again, just like we said, the status can vary based on geographic
that's why I
location.
didn't choose it then. Yeah, I didn't choose it because of that. But I like that you're doing endangered because of Texas. Endangered
within Texas, yes, very much so. Because in Central American population, they're doing okay. But here in Texas, there's a very small group, and their range used to extend well up into Texas. And not so much anymore. So, what is an ocelot? An ocelot are medium-sized spotted cats, which is they're around like 30 to 41 inches long and weigh anywhere from 15 to 30 pounds. Their coloring ranges from a buff or gray with dark brown or black spots, and no two cats have the same spot pattern.
Think tiny little cheetah, but size of a house cat.
Yeah, they're pretty cute.
With bigger eyes and cuter.
Yeah, very big eyes. So, although the coloration, size, and spots are very similar to a bobcat, the ocelot has two stripes extending from the inside corner of their eyes and over the back of their head. And these stripes are what really sets them apart from bobcats. And ocelots don't have that, like the extra...
The ruff.
The cheek floof.
Yeah.
Which I said there has to be a name for it.
There is. It's the ruff.
Kim said cheek tufts? Question mark? What did you say it's called?
It's a R-U-F-F, ruff.
Oh. They're cheek
I only know that because what was it? One of the animals that I covered. Oh, could you fight that? I chose bobcat and it said that was the end of, yeah.
The ruffs. Okay. We'll go with cheek floof. It sounds way more scientific. So ocelots are very lean and don't need all that extra fur since they live in far southern Texas in the Rio Grande region, and it is about a bajillion degrees there, just like the rest of Texas in the summer. So they don't need all that extra fur. Ocelots, like other cats, are carnivores, and given their scrubland native habitat, they mostly eat rabbits, small rodents, and birds. Although, of course, not found in Texas, there are some pretty gnarly videos, if you Google it, or you look it up on YouTube, videos of ocelots attacking and eating macaws. Which,
dang, that's cool.
Yeah.
I would not take on a macaw myself.
No, I hate macaws. Anyway, it is pretty crazy. So look up, just put in like ocelot eats macaw. It's crazy. Anyway, like all cats, they are stealthy night hunters and have a home range of approximately 1 to 4 square miles, which I honestly thought it would be
way bigger.
But it's
way
not.
bigger, I would think. That's definitely, I think even a domestic, like, house cat has a bigger territory than that.
Probably, yeah. So it says, and I checked it a few different places, and it all said 1 to 4 miles.
Little homebody ocelots.
Yeah, really? So,
but I guess they are more arboreal than a bobcat. So maybe the having, like, vertical space makes it so they don't need as much.
In Central America, probably true.
Right, you're right.
But in
Texas doesn't have trees.
Yeah, we don't really have trees. And I will get into that. Because that does play a factor here. But anyway, so within the home range, females will find a den, and after she's been pregnant for 2 short months, she'll give birth to, most of the time, a single kitten. But they have been known to give birth up to 4 different kittens. I don't know why I said 4 different. Like 4 of the
clones,
4 of the same attached kittens. Yes, 4 separate kittens. The kittens will start to hunt around 3 months of age. However, they'll stay with their mother for about 2 years before moving to find their own home range. All right, so that's some basic natural history for you. So let's talk about why they are vanishing. Ocelots in Texas are pretty much non-existent now. Historically, ocelots once occurred throughout South Texas and the southern Edward Plateau, which is located like on the southern border of Texas before the spike really goes far down south, and I don't know how else to explain it other than that. So if you picture Texas, like before the bump that goes really far down south, that's like Edwards Plateau is up there. So I mean, that is a pretty far northern range.
And is that, what's the habitat like there?
That kind of, into Edwards, I believe it gets more into like hill country-ish.
Okay, so like scrubby.
Yeah, yeah. It's still all scrublands.
Okay.
I was going to try to look up
I was just curious, because I don't know. Part of me is like Texas, picturing Texas as straight up desert. Some of it's like, I don't know.
It does vary, but yeah, this one is definitely more foresty scrublands. It has more trees, but I mean now, we'll get into it. Now it's a lot more developed, that area and stuff. Okay, so, and they also are found along the coastal plain. So we have another one that just likes being on the coast. Like anywhere else in the U.S., development of farms and houses are destroying habitats. So this has pushed the ocelots range to far, far south Texas, brush country, to the lower Rio Grande Valley, which is the southernmost tip of Texas. Another side effect from habitat destruction is fragmentation. Mm-hmm. So, right?
And that's what I'm aware of, for sure, with these guys.
So fragmentation is when you have patches of suitable habitat for an animal and then development farms or whatever in between them, and the animal is forced to go through some sort of human zones, let's call them, to get to the habitat to find food or other resources.
Or just can't do it at all,
Yeah, just cannot move. Which I don't know if that's why the home range is so small or if historically they are just home bodies.
Yeah, maybe. Yeah, because I know that was a huge concern for when there was talk of
the border wall?
Yes.
Yeah, no.
Because that would fragment permanently.
What is, there was that documentary that was really good. The River, I think is it called?
By that guy on, that does all the Texas.
Yeah, hold on.
What's his name? Ben Masters?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, Ben Masters. If you guys do not follow him on social media, definitely follow him.
Yeah, he does really cool like trail cam videos on his Instagram.
Yeah, amazing stuff. And he is a film cinematographer here within Texas and focuses mostly on Texas. Let's see here. Because now I gotta give a shout out to this film because it's amazing.
I know, I wish I would have been able to see it.
The River and the Wall is what it's called. So freaking good. But it also, I mean, I love it because of from the cinematic aspect of it. It's phenomenal. But they talk a lot about what the border wall would have done to species, and that is adding a literal wall, and it shuts down migration, it shuts down movements of patterns, and it just, man,
fragmentation at its worst.
Yeah, because there's no going around it at all, like at all. And so the documentary, they're talking about some of the human aspects, but they also go into a lot of the ecological impact that it has. Especially like there was one there that was a huge monarch breeding area, and it would have pretty much demolished this the sanctuary and stuff. So anyway, check out The River and the Wall. He also is going to be doing, it's still coming soon, but he's going to be doing a documentary specifically just on ocelots too.
We should get him on here.
Dude, that would be
Ben Masters,
insane.
come on our podcast.
I would love to interview him. Yeah, fantastic cinematographer. And he has a great crew that he takes around too. So anyway, fragmentation. So fragmentation I don't think is an issue that Americans address. Like when I studied abroad in Australia, we talked about fragmentation and farming a ton, and they were trying to address it, but I feel like nobody talks about fragmentation here in the US ever.
Yeah.
Which, I mean, goes hand in hand with us not talking about anything else ecological
Yeah,
here in the US.
it's not our fault. It's not our fault.
Yeah, and we're too busy worrying about what's happening ecological-wise on the other side of the world. We're, like, forgetting all these, 1,300 species that are dying right within our own backyard. Anyway, so ocelots do have a very particular specifications for where they prefer to live. So this is part of the problem, where we were talking about scrublands and lack of trees. They prefer if their habitat has 95% canopy coverage.
So then they're the idiots for even coming into Texas. Sorry, but
yeah, right. And it's coverage from like shrubs, not so much trees. But still, 95% is a lot. Like, we have, like, these weird, gosh, I forget what they're called, but they're, I mean, maybe 8 feet tall or so. It's like and so it's the typical picturesque shrub whenever you're thinking of scrublands.
Like a thicket, yeah.
Yeah. And so they still would prefer 95% of canopy coverage from that. And they also prefer if that canopy is below 6 feet.
That makes sense. Think about what kind of bird habitat that is.
Right?
Like,
bird
prime habitat
yeah,
for hunting.
For some prime bird. But because of these two picky preferences of the ocelot, the extent of habitat destruction, and just what that means in general, it's estimated that only about 1% of South Texas is even suitable habitat for them anyway.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah, which that is the main reason why their numbers have plummeted. It's difficult to get an accurate number, but the current ocelot population in Texas is down to about 50 to 80 individuals, guessing.
Sorry, ocelots, you gotta get less picky, man.
Yeah, right? Just expand. Maybe even take it down to like 80-85% canopy coverage.
The sun's not so bad.
Yeah, you live in freaking Texas. Like, so anyway, and it is hard to get a count because, again, they hunt at night and they're extremely elusive, so hard to track them down. Like, actually track them down, because looking for tracks is one of the reasons how we get a count. So what is being done to help ocelots? So the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Services, Texas Park and Wildlife Department, the Nature Conservancy, and Kim said, hey-o, because she used to work with them, and several other local organizations are trying to join together to save the last remaining 1% of suitable land, but it's 1%, so not much there.
But I guess Texas is big, so 1%
Texas
could be
huge.
Quite a few acres.
It's big, but yeah, still 1%. So anyway, however, there is one particular area where ocelots are being heavily protected, and that's the Laguna Acasa Wildlife Refuge in southern Texas. It's a coastal plot of land, which is federally protected by the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service, and right there is your greatest chance to see an ocelot, but again, they're very much so protected and avoid people, all 60 left of them. So chances of seeing one even there, which is like where they're really concentrating on their efforts because there have been the largest number seen there. It's still hard to reverse the damage that's been done, especially since ocelots need such dense coverage. But even the small efforts that can be are having a huge impact on them. I mean, for what it's worth. I mean, 50 to 80 individuals is not looking too good for the ocelot.
Yeah. That's not a very decent-sized breeding population.
Not at all. And then get into funneling and all kinds of other issues.
Right.
So
I guess if they, vacationed in Mexico, they could find they could find a partner, do some genetic.
Yeah, that's what I was gonna say. I wonder if they're gonna start like artificially inseminating and trying to bring them back that way. I mean, they are important. I mean, birds, one, they do carry diseases, but again, just like any animals, there's a balance, and so
you can't have too many.
Yeah, and so you can have too many birds, and so ocelots do take care of that issue.
I think bobcats are not bird specialists as much as an ocelot. I think bobcats are more of like a small mammal.
Yeah. So anyway, that's the Texas ocelot.
Cool. I'm so glad that, man, like, usually we're always on the same brainwave, but I like that sometimes you take things in a different direction, because I was like, all right, critically endangered, IUCN, and you're like, nah, we're doing state by state.
Yeah, and two,
I like it. It makes sense.
Yeah, and it makes sense in one. I mean, Texas, since I've lived here for the last 3+ years now, it does have, I mean, for what it lacks, trees, it has, which I got into an argument at work with people, because they're like, we have tons of tree species here. And it's like, yes, you have a number of species. One, because Texas is freaking gigantic. Two, you have coast, you have the hill country, you have scrubland. So it's like, yes, it's diverse, but it's not.
So they've got the biodiversity, but not the quantity.
Correct. Yeah. There's like trees here.
We literally come from a place that is Penn's Woods. Like,
yes.
We come from a forest state.
Forest. Yeah. Always forest. And so whenever people are like, we have trees here, I'm like, no, you don't have trees. Like, I'm, growing up in the
Texas
Allegheny National Forest. Yeah, right? Like, you guys do not have forests. So, anyway. But I don't know. I mean, Texas does still have, it's a very interesting, diverse, just because it is so different from what I grew up with. So different. It's really fascinating to me, and so I really like learning about it.
Cool. Alrighty. Well, my next one is much more critically endangered. I don't want to say there's no hope left, but things are looking real grim. And that is the red wolf.
Oh, yeah.
So
I did come across this one, and I was like, man, if Laura didn't pick the ocelot, she's got to pick
surely she'll do the wolf.
Yeah.
So a little bit of natural history for those of you that have never heard of a red wolf. There are only 20 to 30 mature adults left. So, like none.
Oh my goodness,
20 to 30? They look like a typical wolf. They're just smaller in size, have longer legs and ears, and shorter fur. They got their name from their cinnamon or tawny-colored fur, but they can also be gray and black, just like other wolves. So there's something about, like, if you know what a coyote looks like and a wolf, they're like a mix of the two. Like, they're like more like a coyote.
That's an accurate description.
Like a wolf. To give you, about 50 pounds, about 30 inches at the shoulder. Historically, they've lived all over the southeast of the United States, all the way up into Canada. So we would have had wolves in Pennsylvania, which is really cool. Red wolves.
That is neat to think about.
And, but now they're only found in Dare County, North Carolina. One county in North Carolina. Which I did not know it was just that. So really, there's not a lot known about their natural ecology, because by the time people were like, hey, we should probably know this, it was a little late.
Too late.
We believe that they like mountains, forests, and wetlands. But really they're probably habitat generalists, meaning that they really can live anywhere. They just might prefer those places. They're primarily nocturnal, which I found surprising. Yeah, because usually canines are not.
Yeah, interesting.
They do have a social hierarchy, just like other wolves, with only the dominant pair breeding, but all helping out. They have established territories. Packs are usually small, with just a parent and their kids, which is normal for wolves. A lot of people think about wolf packs as being, like, ginormous, but a lot of times it's just the parents and their pups. They sound, when I was researching them, it says they sound like a mix between gray wolves and coyotes. So coyotes sound crazy, like yelpy. So it's got to be something between a howl and a yelp.
Yeah, I will say, though, and this is going to sidetrack us, but the one that still terrifies me is a mountain lion.
Oh my gosh, it's a scream. Yeah.
It's a scream. It sounds like an old lady is being murdered.
Yeah, yeah, cat screamings is no joke. And then lastly, they prey on small rodents, small mammals, and things like deer and pigs. Okay, so why are they vanishing? I'm only going to give 3 reasons again, because I can't go into a million. So actually there's really only 2 major threats. One is hybridization with coyotes.
Interesting.
Yeah, so I don't think a lot of people would think about that, but both are canines that are able to interbreed with one another. And you may have heard of coy wolves before, which is what you call a coyote and a wolf. And they do that all the time up north. There's a lot of gray wolves and coyotes interbreeding, while red wolves do too. And the problem with this is that hybridization is diluting their genetics. And if left unchecked, it will ultimately lead to extinction. There won't be any pure red wolves left. There'll be a mix. And that's happened with other species like the dingo. Even though they're protected,
Ate your baby.
Yeah, they are definitely diluted. Even though they're protected today, there's still the other main threat is persecution and poaching. So habitat loss, that's an issue it's too far gone. Now the problems are we need to stop hybridization and we need to stop persecution and poaching. So don't even get me.
I just love that it's persecution. Like I get
the
it.
term,
I get why.
yeah,
It's just the term.
They
It's
are
like persecuted wolves. Like
poor persecuted wolves. Well, don't get me started because my soapbox. I am really into predator ecology, and humans have systematically eliminated large predators from ecosystems around the world. So,
especially here in North America.
Oh yeah, we're like, can it eat my livestock? Gone. Get rid of it.
Yeah.
And red wolves are blamed for killing livestock, and they were killed all over the range by both landowners and the U.S. government. Okay, so it was sanctioned before. The U.S. government was like, we don't want these wolves around.
Yeah.
We're getting rid of them. So even though they're protected today, wolves that have been reintroduced to North Carolina have been illegally killed by landowners. So some of these reintroduction projects haven't gone so well because of problems with landowners. So what's being done? Here's the great news. A lot is being done for the red wolf.
Trying anyway.
Yes. They're trying real hard. So they do have federal protection under the Endangered Species Act. And there are some reintroduction programs going on, which I think a lot of people question. You know, if an animal is going endangered, well, why don't we just breed more and let them loose?
Yeah, should we just let it go?
Much easier said than done to reintroduce an animal that has been born in captivity and then to release them in the wild. Doesn't go so well a lot of the time.
Yeah, goodness.
But thankfully they have been having some success with the wolves. So the reintroduced animals it's considered an experimental or a non-essential population. This is just to see, can this be done? Because it's so little. So they're managed by the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service, and they reasonably secure in captivity. They began reintroducing red wolves at the Alligator River National Wildlife Refuge in northeastern North Carolina in 1987. So that was the first trial. As of September...
In 87, and they've been working since... Okay.
Since then, yeah. So, as of September 2002, there were 102 animals that had been released, with a minimum of 281 descendants produced in the wild since 1987. So that population by 2005 had grown to more than 150 wolves distributed across lots of land, mostly private, but also some public. However, okay, so because I'm like, oh yeah, there's only like 20 to 30 left because there used to be 150. Well, in 2012, there was a big conflict with landowners that led to red wolf poaching, and the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service had to change its plan in 2016. So this included limiting their range with no more to only 800 kilometers squared, which I'm terrible with metric, but that's what they gave it to me in. And with no more than 20 to 30 wolves. So that was the agreement they came to with landowners. All right, sorry, we'll only have 20 to 30 wolves out there.
Gosh.
Yeah. So they're assessing future sites for reintroduction. They even tried earlier in the 90s, they tried to let them go in the Smoky Mountains, but that was not successful at all. Most of the pups and stuff didn't make it. So, if we can't reintroduce them to the wild, what else are we doing? We're doing captive breeding programs. And, you know, Katie and I have talked about SSP programs before in this podcast, which is a species survival plan, it's a very active recovery program for the red wolf since the 1970s. Some efforts even starting in the 60s. So the remaining wolves were rounded up from Texas and Louisiana, because that's where the last ones were found. They rounded them up, brought them in captivity, and have been breeding them ever since. So although there are only 20 to 30 individuals in the wild, there are 240 in the SSP program.
Yeah, which I knew about the SSP program, and it was Pretty
Yeah.
successful.
So this creature it's almost extinct in the wild, but it's got a decent number in captivity. 240 isn't too bad, and they're housed at 45 different facilities. I know that I worked at the Lehigh Valley Zoo. They had red wolves. And I know Akron Zoo, shout out to Akron Zoo, they've been doing red wolf stuff. And I think that they just reintroduced their pups to the wild that they had recently. And they're doing really well. Yeah. So shout out to Akron Zoo.
Which is a very small zoo, too, in Ohio, if anybody doesn't know. It's a pretty small zoo.
Doing good work. So the purpose of having a captive population is basically just to have a safeguard, like in case there aren't any more left in the wild, which is just what we were talking about last week in our lemur episode. Sarah was talking about how having a captive population of lemurs is like a life preserve. Same thing.
Yeah, again, it's just like, and I get the whole livestock thing, but you take something out of it, it just has such a ripple effect.
Yes, because coyotes don't prey on the same stuff that wolves do. Which is why we have too many white-tailed deer all over the East Coast.
All over it, yeah.
Or all over the United States, yeah, really. Yeah, so those are the two main things. There's a reintroduction program and captive breeding. So if we are to save the red wolves, we need to not only spread the word, that predators aren't so bad, and that we can coexist just fine, but to support institutions that are doing these programs. So support your local zoos. They're doing conservation work all over the world. It's not just what you're seeing in the zoo. They're doing things out in the rest of the world and in this country. So be sure to support them because they might be the last bastion for some of these critically endangered species.
Yeah, and for so many people who give, zoos such crap, one, make sure it's an AZA accredited zoo because that means they have their shit together. And Laura and I have both been through multiple accreditation processes, and it is a pain in the butt for all the best reasons. But
yeah, and there are some non-AZA institutions that I would recommend
that are still really good.
I would definitely make sure to do your research before supporting them.
Absolutely. Because I know Pittsburgh Zoo is not AZA, but they do phenomenal work. They're Association of American
ZAA?
Zoos.
Are they ZAA?
Yeah, something like that. Yeah. But do your research before you go. But part of that accreditation is you are required to be able to be doing conservation, either donating funds, part of the SSPs, you're required to do stuff. And so it's not just like zoos are just here for fun and entertainment. That's not the case anymore. They
not anymore.
They really do serve a critical role.
And so many critically endangered species have spent their last days in the zoos. I was just in my grad school class, we were talking about extinction, and both the passenger pigeon and the Carolina parakeet, both of which are extinct now, the last remaining one was in a zoo. So the zoos are the last step. I'm sure lots of keepers, and when I was a keeper, we didn't want to house critically endangered species. No. We'd rather they be in the wild, but hey man, you gotta do what you gotta do.
Yeah, and that's the thing is, people that get all fired up against zoos and everything. Okay, well, one, how much are you doing as an individual to shop sustainably, to make sure that you're making wise choices? Because what we're doing here has an effect on, again, as much as what we're doing has a ripple effect. You can't be so against zoos because, let's release all the animals into the wild. Okay, cool. Well, they're being killed because of humans where they are, so... Which
is what Sarah brought up last week, too. Yeah. They're not doing lemur reintroductions right now because the situation's so terrible. You wouldn't let them go in a bad place.
Yeah, it's pointless. It's pointless. All right, well, speaking of extinction, the other Texas species that I had focused on, and we talked about ones that are close to vanishing, so I figured we could wrap it up by talking about a species that did vanish and within our lifetime. So there are, of course, several species around the world that have recently completely vanished, like we were talking about the 6th grade extinction. This one, however, has only recently been declared gone. The ivory-billed woodpecker.
Oh, no!
Which they did say, they officially declared it
without
gone.
A doubt.
Yeah, so unfortunately, the ivory-billed woodpecker was not the only one to be declared extinct. At the end of September, 22 other plant and animal species were proposed by the U.S. Fish and Wildlife to be declared extinct. The ivory-billed woodpecker is native to bottomland hardwood forests and temperate carnivorous forests of southern United States. And there's another subspecies
I thought
in
you
Cuba.
said carnivorous forest for a second.
Did I? I might have.
You said coniferous, probably.
Okay, coniferous, yeah.
But it sounded like carnivorous, which is terrifing.
Which
they love those
way more fun.
Forests. Yeah.
Way more fun. We'll have to go back and listen and see. But there is another subspecies of the ivory-billed woodpecker in Cuba as well.
Oh, okay. That makes me feel a little better.
Oh, no, they're all gone. But, yeah.
I missed that part.
So much hope. No, they're all gone.
Island species. Gosh dang it.
Yeah, right.
And man, the last one was seen in Arkansas, and you and I were going to go find them.
We were convinced.
There was like a $10,000 reward.
There was for a while, yeah, to find them. So for an inland bird, they are pretty big, standing about 20 inches tall and having a wingspan of almost 2.5 feet. It's the largest woodpecker in this habitat range.
Yeah, when you see, like, the pileated or pileated, however you want to say it, when you see that, which is still around, that's a big freaking woodpecker. And these were even bigger.
Yeah. So this woodpecker is mostly black with white lines on their cheeks and down their back. Males also have red feathers on the back crest of their skull. They are often confused, like Laura said, with another North American woodpecker, the pileated. Although similar, there are differences that are really just too hard to explain in a podcast, so just Google it. Yeah. Kim says...
Plus, it doesn't matter anymore.
Yeah, it doesn't matter because they're gone. Kim says she really thinks that they're the same. And I quote, I'm convinced a pileated evolves, i.e. like a Pokemon, into an ivory-billed woodpecker.
Well, you never know.
You never know.
I mean, we don't see them anymore, so...
Maybe they all did. So the pileated woodpecker versus ivory-billed woodpecker, just go ahead and Google it. They are very, very similar. Anyway, so like all woodpeckers, they eat insects, preferably beetle larvae. As far as their breeding cycle, not much is known because, well, now they're gone. So the ivory-billed woodpecker has been endangered for quite some time. Dating back to the late 1800s, early 1900s, naturalists were already sensing this bird was in trouble. So even back then, they were like, uh-oh, something's not going here. Extensive habitat destruction due to logging and hunting had reduced populations even at that point. They were being hunted for people who wanted to simply display these massive birds. So they became a trophy bird, which is such a weird I want
bird.
This giant woodpecker over here now. Yeah. So
it was definitely. I feel like there's definitely some sexual innuendos in there too. You want to see my giant pecker?
I mean, but it's the same thing as like people who need to have like displaying rhino horns, giant lions in their homes. Put a woodpecker on the wall beside it. Why not? So
display that giant pecker
on the wall. So the rarer the bird became, the more highly sought after the birds became. So of course, it quickly made their situation way, way worse. Many ornithologists believed that by the 1920s it was already extinct. However, a few sightings here and there after this, the ivory-billed woodpecker quickly became something of legend that everybody wanted to find.
Well, I mean, dang, that is a long time to maintain hope. 100 years.
It is.
100 years we hoped.
Well, and there have been some fairly credible. So I'll go through the list here. So between 1937 to 1939, there was an expedition by the Cornell Ornithology Department, a PhD student who was there, who was searching for the bird. To everyone's surprise, he estimated that there were 20 to 24 left. And that was in like a very particular range that he found these birds in. It was like, no, it's definitely ivory-billed woodpecker. They're still alive. There is hope. But the last official sighting that they say is credible of the ivory-billed woodpecker was in 1944.
Whoa.
So since 1944, there have been said to be many sightings, but many of these were just thought as confusion again between ivory-billed and pileated. In 1969, there was a confirmed sighting of a breeding pair in Florida, which was confirmed from genetics, which was found on a fallen feather. So up until 1969,
there was a few left.
There was still some left. There have since been sporadic reportings all the way until 2010. However, it's hard to truly know, although many do come from reputable people that do know what they're talking about, ornithologists that are biologists that are out and about, that they're like, you know what, no, this is definitely ivory-billed, it's not pileated. We definitely
I know that a lot of the stuff was with their calls rather than sightings. And
yeah, it was definitely
distinctive.
Yeah, their calls are very distinctive, very compared to the pileated, very, very distinctive. So in 2005, there was a fairly credible sighting and some pretty decent video footage taken. But again, it's like the video footage is sort of like, okay, this is 2021. Why don't banks have like HD cameras to catch suspects? Like, why is it so pixelated? It's kind of the
like
same
a Nessie
thing.
Video.
Yeah, why all the time? But anyway, the footage was so good that there were people that were actually breaking down into tears over the sightings. Like, I'm not going to judge anyone's excitement over a bird. But, and maybe if I was the one that found it, I would be a little emotional because I'd be like, mostly the sweet, I did it.
Dude, totally. That's because I feel the same way about, like, the Tasmanian tiger. Like, it's gotta still be out there. I gotta find it. And if I did, I'd probably cry.
Yeah, but crying at someone else's video, I'm not sure if I go to that extent. Anyway. So, Laura and I we did talk for a while, like we said, when we lived in Arkansas, about going into eastern Arkansas in our kayaks to find it. And there was like a $10,000 reward for any photographic evidence of it. And I mean, at that point, our lives, 10K would have put us after a great start in buying all the goats we needed for a fully successful goat milk soap business. So, we're a missed opportunity there. But it's been 16 years since a very credible source has happened. So either they are extinct or everyone has just got tired of looking for them. One or the other. I'm still in Texas, so half tempted to go looking for them or just pay Kim to go searching on our behalf.
Yes.
And she said, heck yeah, I'll put together a float trip.
Yeah,
report from the field. Kim, in the field.
She's like in waders up to her hips in swamp water. Because that's where it would be.
It would be, yeah.
I think when I was reading some articles about it, I thought, so, I was like, man, well, why aren't we still having hope? They brought up the fact that that keeping hope for endangered, for certain species makes it so that resources are diverted to that. And I was like, okay, fair enough, because we don't want another panda situation.
Yeah, we don't want. But all for the pygmy raccoon. I'm all for another panda situation to save the pygmy raccoon. But yeah, so I mean, it is unfortunate that 23 species alone in North America proposed to be going extinct. And that's just
not even counting what's already gone.
Yeah, that's
sorry guys, I don't want to bring
recently.
That up too,
yeah,
but.
like that's not recently have been gone and declared extinct. So yeah, we really gotta get our crap together because humans are just. Man, we have an effect on the world around us that I don't even think we fully comprehend. So we just need to be smart now because we're just continually messing it up for our kids in the future, and not enough people are thinking far enough down the line. Just too short-sighted here. But if you do want a really funny picture, and Kim and I were kicking this back and forth because we were laughing so hard, and I have to show this to you, Laura. But it's an article, if you go to the smithsonianmag.com, hopefully I can share my screen here. All right, look how stupid this picture is. So it's called A Close Encounter with the Rarest Bird.
Oh my gosh,
but look how dumb
fake. It looks like
doesn't it look fake?
Fake
Dude,
bird.
photographs of the ivory-billed woodpecker. That is 100% fake.
Yeah, it looks like a mounted bird on that dude's shoulder.
Listen, I was laughing, but this guy's name is James Tanner. And he was the young ornithologist that went out into the 30s that came back with substantial documentation, not only field notes, which he literally wrote on the book on the species, which he did. But anyway, so I just thought it was hilarious that he brought this picture back, and they're like, oh yeah, this is definitely still around. So just go to smithsonianmag.com and just search ivory-billed woodpecker. You will see the picture. Like, here's another one. Like, there is no freaking way that is real. It says Tanner's photos of the ivory-billed woodpecker show the bird as delicate but lively. That is not a freaking lively bird. So anyway, animals are dying.
I feel like we should end on call to action. I mean, we both kind of said about, support your zoo, but I feel like there's got to be, like, otherwise people are going to leave this episode and be like, we're hopeless and we suck.
Well, because humans do, but there are things we can do.
Yeah, don't worry, guys.
Yeah, just thinking sustainably with your purchases. Gosh, dang it, it's even things like...
Well, in Texas, save your water.
Yeah, gosh. Yeah, it's just making small conscious decisions to be like, is this going to impact? Like, do you need to use a plastic straw, single-use plastics? No. Like, do you need to use plastic bags, or can you use reusable bags? Like, it really is just small things that surmount up over time.
Yeah, and even if it's not stuff like that, if the opposite direction of, like, don't support certain things, because that's pressuring big business to change. So boycott certain products, or don't support them, and then, because... if you don't feel that individuals can make a difference, which I know we're getting to that point where some people are like, listen, the everyday man's not going to be able to save it. Well, then big business, it's up to somebody else. So then we've got to pressure them to doing it.
And I will say, like, I mean, Laura and I have a nature podcast and everything, but we are by no means like the typical tree hugging, like the extremists in this matter at all. We just make as many conscious decisions that we possibly can.
Oh yeah, I'm still using single-use plastics. I feel terrible about it, and I'm trying to lessen them.
Yeah, but it's hard to get around it. I mean, you go to the grocery store and how many things are packaged in just plastics. It's completely pointless. But again, I mean, that's like, unless you go to a farmer's market, which again, that's great for the local economy and everything, and you can take your own bags and everything. It's hard to get around. It's very difficult. So, we preach all this stuff, but don't think like we're out there screaming and crying when trees are getting cut down.
Yeah, and spread the word. Spread the word about endangered and critically endangered species. Because, again, people don't know about things like the pygmy raccoon, the ivory-billed woodpecker, the dick sissel is in trouble. Freshwater mussels.
Yeah. Save the freshwater mussels. But yeah, so just talking about it and just making the best effort that each of us can.
Yeah,
it just makes a huge
wake up
decision.
each day and make at least one good decision, you can feel pretty good about yourself, I think.
Yeah, and it does have an impact. I mean, it all adds up. Alrighty, everybody. Well, we will talk to everyone next week. Until then, make sure you follow us or go to our social media. If you have episode ideas or anything like that, we're going to be starting to talk about season 4 coming up.
Yep.
Which is crazy.
Yes.
And our 1 year anniversary, season 4 will pretty much mark the 1 year anniversary.
Yeah.
So,
and we got really good stuff coming up even this season.
Gosh, we do. We definitely do. So, all right, everybody, send us a message if you have any ideas. Until then, we will talk to you next week.
Talk to you next week.